Good afternoon, YouTube. There's been something that was troubling me very much in this province. So, as you know, Jason Kenney's government intends to start creating cuts here. Not exactly a tremendous amount, about 30-some million. So this here troubles me. Education Minister orders CBE audit following decision to cut 300 temporary teachers. Okay. For those of you in this province that have been following this for a long time, everybody knows that the Calgary Board of Education is in dire need of accountability when it comes to money. If you study them in the past, you'll know, for example, the absurd rent for the admin building, signing on for a lease, a lock-in lease, which cost the public board more than $13 million a year. Something that was poorly negotiated and actually increasing every year. Let's see, the building, which is approximately 210,000 square feet, an estimated 130 million to build. That works out to an eye-popping $65 per square foot. The building is roughly 200,000 square feet. So this itself, 13 million a year and increasing, poorly negotiated. $65 a square foot, tries to sublease unused space for $23 per square foot. They can't even break even. They can't even break it in half. Here's another. CBE exec expenses extra hotel night at ethics conference. That was, okay, Lisa Davis, president of Calgary Parent Association School Councils, questioned the board today to send Barkway to the annual conference of the Canadian Society of Corporate Secretaries at a total cost of over $3,100 when it's scrimping on spending in classrooms. The Calgary Board of Education showed Janice Barkway submitted a claim to stay in a $219 a night room at the Fairmont Queen Elizabeth starting on the Saturday prior to the event. So she spent roughly $3,000 plus of $3,000. So, when the United Conservative Party is trying to introduce an audit and reduce spending by about, say, 30 million, that, you know, in the grand scheme of things, we have about an operating budget of $1.2 billion. It's nothing. It's a small cut. And yet, the CBE tries to use their students, the little kids, to rally against the idea of making budget cuts when they don't have to fire anybody, but they could be more responsible with money in other aspects, right? But of course, the CBE will use the political climate, let's say, to establish a war between little children and the government. See, what really agitates me in our time, because I find it extremely, extremely stupid, and also dishonorable, because it's a lie that they tell our kids. I heard about this one teacher that rallied, I think, 200 some students because that person was preparing, I guess, to be fired. And so they put a protest, the whole classroom, and I think additional students, to protect that teacher's job and so on and so forth, and make it a political problem. In addition, there was a climate rally downtown, and I'm sure many of you remember it, where students were actually encouraged by their teachers, that they took the afternoon off by the order of their teachers to participate in a climate rally. And now here again, the teachers make use of naive students to try to make a political statement to so-called save their jobs, when really the Calgary Board of Education needs to get more austerity cuts and more responsibility with money and management of money, so that the bureaucracy as it is can be significantly reduced, because the bureaucracy in the education, the Calgary Board of Education, is massive. I hear it's about the same size as the city of Toronto, which is substantially larger than us, right? This is a bureaucracy that's grown completely out of control, and they use the young students, the young minds, and naive minds, not mature mind, to back their childish decision to fight against something that is very, very necessary, and almost a paltry amount compared to what the actual budget is. So I want to talk to you about this many times, because I'm looking at it. You know, not only do teachers nowadays indoctrinate the students with this whole climate change romantic fantasy, you know, that actually destroys Alberta. You know, there is lots of things that go into the classroom when it comes to subtle propaganda and indoctrination with climate change. For example, environmental damage is irrevocably caused by any company trying to set up a business relating to oil, let's say. And they use that by illustrations. You know, they'll read a storybook to the kids, and then the city will come from a small town and nature blooming, and then a business comes in and they start building the city up with roads and whatnot, start electricity and whatnot, but pollution is ever evident. You know, it's completely correlated between the two ideas. And what happened when a little child looks at this, you know, at a very young age, they correlate that idea, of course. Okay, so if we modernize, it means that we're going to be making trouble for the environment. The problem is, that's a romantic fantasy. Really, if you think about it. Okay, so we'll just sit down and absorb nature and we won't touch anything. And in the meantime, your belly is going to be empty because you're not doing anything. Right? But we are preserving the environment. You don't have time when your belly is empty to concentrate on only the environment. The reason why that the students are failing in this time is because they lack the education and appreciation for our Canadian society as it is. You know, let them absorb what they need to absorb. They're not mature enough to handle political issues as of yet, but if we educate them properly, then they might be. It's not our position as teachers to indoctrinate the kids and make them a mouthpiece for whatever, you know, entity wants to make noise, a political issue and conflicts for making noise, and let the children imitate that. Like Greta Thunberg, for example. I'm so tired of hearing about that person indoctrinating kids everywhere. She make everything a political issue. And they use her as the poster child for their irresponsibility. This political issue introduced to the children is not yet responsible, because they're not mature enough to understand the angles yet. You need to give them the tools to analyze the situation properly. You know, the real dream that should be enjoyed by Canadian people can be realized with our kids being properly educated. What happened to how Canada is well known for being charitable to other countries around the world, sharing our resources, our money, our talent, and giving to many other countries. Peacekeeping soldiers, charitable acts of kindness, of real kindness, not political, so-called political correct kindness. You know, the whole climate change nonsense, that's a facade. You know, anybody that study it and analyze it correctly, they teach the kids the same way, how to see through the facade. Instead, they let them think, oh, the world will end. All this fear-mongering, fear tactics. and try to make the kids afraid for their future unless they do something. You know, this kind of reasoning that doesn't belong in education. You know, let the kids go out of that narrow-minded, indoctrinated culture, become pioneers of technology so we can share our resources. We can actually make prosperity for this country. The problem lies in education, and this is the evidence. So many things are going on behind the scenes. The Calgary Board of Education is so deeply corrupt in their teachings and in their conduct. So then when Kenny tries to introduce a little bit of responsibility to them, then immediately they throw a baby tantrum and they try to lay off so many temporary teacher positions and so on. And that only will make trouble for them in the future, because later on they'll have to hire more teachers just out of school. They'll be cheaper and whatnot. So actually they are the ones, the Calgary Board of Education, who are actually destroying jobs. They don't have to lose anyone, really. And if they do, they can make a smaller cut than 300 teachers, I tell you that. They can remain in budget if they would cut in other places and be more fiscally responsible. Jason Kenney acts correctly, because the cuts have to be made. Otherwise, this province will become bankrupt eventually. I feel no pity for those teachers that try to indoctrinate their kids, and I've seen it many, many times. This country could be made great again, but it starts with education, and it starts with responsibility to our kids. Those young minds, they need to be molded nicely so that they, in the future, they can discern from the corruption and so on and so forth. Really, it takes time to mold that kind of idea. If you're lucky enough, you have influences at home or among family members or friends that can help you point and go the right direction. You'll be able to see the bias, I tell you. It takes time. It takes the molding of years of molding, you know. Hard to discern the truth, but easy if you know what you're looking for. I feel that it is very, very troubling in this time. Education is the source of our problems. They go through school, they become indoctrinated, they come out of school, they only want to do this and that for climate change, radicals, and so on. You know, that kind of thing cannot exist in a free society, and it should be condemned. So I thank you for your time and attention. I will be making subsequent videos about this issue, an issue that touched me very deeply, because there's many things surrounding that problem that needs to be addressed. And if our society, if our government can't do anything to get this problem under control, because the audit for me is very necessary. And much more is necessary. There should be a analysis, let's say, a study created to try to detect and eliminate all that indoctrination and biased political fear-mongering going on in the classroom, to try to encourage the young minds to bend to that kind of idea. And they shouldn't. So thank you for your time. There are many more videos to come about this issue. And take good care. Bye-bye.